the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, Rich Hoffman here. I knew this is a good book when my friend George Lang gave it to me, Senator Lang, and he's been passing these out in the Ohio State House, and I knew about the book. I hadn't read it until he suggested it to me because he's working on some things in Ohio for better energy policy as the majority whip in the Senate, and I understand exactly why he's doing it, and I know everybody's not a big supporter of the Republicans that got in trouble for defending First Energy in Ohio. The First Energy case, Democrats have made a big deal about it, and I feel bad for the people who got wrapped up in it, even if there are people who disagree with some of the people that did get in trouble for it, and in cases went to jail. The Speaker of the House went to jail for it, and I think that's wrong. And the reason why is there's a greater scheme at play. And being up close to some of these stories and some of the stories that I've been involved in over the years, and have some proximity knowledge, whether it's the First Energy case that I have a lot of strong opinions on because it deals with nuclear energy and the way governments handle energy policy and the way regulation was created by radical Democrat policies to subsidize renewables such as solar and wind at the expense of once solid, great suppliers like fossil fuels and nuclear power. Nuclear power is very clean, and yet it gets attacked rigorously, and it makes no sense. And yet the renewables that they try to push everybody onto aren't ready for market, and the cost to society has been detrimental. And yet there's a lust to do so anyway. And other political stories that I've been involved in that are unique, that I think attach to the whys and the hows, are why I went and wrote a book called The Politics of Heaven. And books. It's one thing to do blog postings and vlogs like this one and podcasts and do interviews and things like that. A book is something that lasts a long time, so it takes a while to write them. It's taken me, I took about a year to sit down and really kind of flesh it out and write out the roughly 20 chapters that are involved. I am soon going to Washington, D.C. to do the 20th chapter. I might even write an epilogue that is another chapter because the content, but it's come together very well, and there's a lot to it. But the looming question that I answer in the book, and why I'm writing it, not just give opinions, but you have to give something that really you can drive. So that's what Alex Epstein did with this book, Fossil Future. He's a philosopher, and he became an energy expert, and over time, I think he went from being kind of a guy that likes to go on vacations to the beach and walk in the sand and kind of a live and let live kind of person to understanding the advocacy of fossil fuels and how they benefit society, and he was able to articulate a proper message, which he put in this book. So books are important because they drive narrative, and George Lang has been passing these out, and I after reading through it and going through it a couple times now, I'm going to break it down into sections because you can't really do a review on something like this because there's many layers to it. And the first layer is a financial one. The second layer is one about the unhuman nature of it. And this is something that Ayn Rand explored in a couple of her books, this nature, like the desire to push society back to the primordial spirit. And there is a real hunger among the left, the radical left, the anti-capitalist push that is non-human. They really don't like the human experience. And so when you say that, that's why I'm writing a book. That's why I'm writing The Politics of Heaven. Because people don't really, when you say there's a non-human movement, they assume when Republicans and Democrats sit down together, everybody wants to be human. Everybody wants to have an experience to be human, and everybody wants to benefit humans. No one wants to see hungry people out there in the world. That's what we assume. No one wants to see people needlessly killed or punished. That's what we assume. However, there is the best way to explain it is there's an occult movement to sacrifice human beings in the same way that human beings have been sacrificed to Aztec gods and all over the Near East and literally everywhere in the world. There has been a real hunger to sacrifice people, whether it's headhunters from New Guinea or sacrifices to Huitzilopochtli and the Aztec god, and where Mexico, the capital of Mexico, Mexico City, is today, and what lied there before was baked in blood from sacrifice, including the need to sacrifice animals to Yahweh or firstborn children to Molech or Baal or Ishtar. There is a real non-human, anti-human movement, and it works through human beings that really don't like the growth of mankind. And so this is something that people have contemplated for a long time. Alex Epstein certainly does in this book wonder about that. He puts a lot of stats forth to explain the non-human movement. But anybody who's against fossil fuels, essentially the cost of fossil fuels, the cost of the environment, the cost to extract them, what it does for civilization, the only way you could be against them is if you're against human growth, human potential, or you have a desire to eradicate humans from the earth. Now, I think we saw that, we got a taste of that during the COVID lockdowns. That was when much like we're seeing now, where Democrats are trying to poise themselves for an election, and they're trying to gain momentum, and they're throwing everything into the fan to see what blows out of it. They have nothing to lose, just like they did in 2020. And if it took election fraud to get there, they will do it. If it takes tearing down everybody, the TSA, they'll do it. And if it means turn off every last light in the world, they will certainly do it. Because they are not for human progress. They are not for traveling to space. They are not for thriving economies. They are not for new benefits learned through healthcare. Where power makes everything happen. If you've been to a place that's lost its power for a sustained period of time, or you've been to places in the world where there's not much electricity, Alex Epstein makes some great points in here about upper mobility and how electricity has benefited people and made them not poor. Makes a really good example of the way that people lived times of medieval Europe, and what a king would consider luxury items are things that someone poor in America would consider. They would be absolutely over the moon with believing in the luxuries that we had, like a bed that you could sleep in, and air conditioning, a way to control your climate, a way to heat up your food, a place to refrigerate your food, a little box that you can turn on and get information from all over the world. The upper mobility that has come from power and energy policy, everybody should be able to agree on it if they all wanted human beings to flourish. And the real hard truth about it is those who have been against fossil fuel use, those who have been against any energy production, are also against the human race thriving. And they would love to wipe it off the face of the earth if they could, in preservation of the earth. And that means them too. And that's why I say it has an occult taproot into something much older and more lethal than what we typically associate with common everyday living. So to answer that question, I wrote a book. And I will be publishing that book. I'm going through the hard part of now you write something, you have something, now you got to find a distribution channel and you got to build the brand. You got to do a whole lot of stuff to get it out to the marketplace. But it's worth doing. And I think what I've done in it came out exceptionally well. I had an idea how good, but I wanted to define this non-human element. Why are there non-human elements, and how do you tie them back to the behavior of our current politics? That's why it's called the politics of heaven. Because I will say that the war that has always been at play, and that's why you talk about Nephilim, and you talk about fallen angels, you talk about Satan and devils and music industry and worshiping all these soothsaying evil entities, plotting against God, the anti-God movement. How could anybody dislike Jesus? I mean, how could there be anybody out there that doesn't like Jesus, or the nature of a God that has the Ten Commandments? Well, how could anybody not like that? Yet you have a non-human movement, and I have a very confident grip on what that is. So for now, until I can put the book out and people can go read it, we'll just say that it's a thing. And yeah, I'll bring the receipts and I'll talk about it in great detail to define it. But in the meantime, because it takes a lot of work to get those things out, we can talk about it here, but you have to give people, books are great ways to communicate things, because you can give it to them, they can read it at their own rate. You give them notes and further places to go get resource material so they can come to their own terms with the information. But that's necessary. Got to do it. Got to have a method to communicate information, especially information that is that central and difficult to the human race. But definitely anti-energy policies, and Democrats who support anti-energy, and Republicans who sit on the fence and want to play nice with Democrats, you got to understand they're not playing nice. And we saw their teeth, their fangs during the COVID bit. We saw what they really wanted, the whole net zero, stay at home, lock yourself down, don't talk to your neighbor, don't go to church, close down your businesses, attack the economy, sink it, wipe the earth clean of humans. That's why they also support abortion rights, because they are not pro-human. And so that's the hard reality. And Alex, obviously in this book, that's a traumatic issue for him to deal with, because it implicates that humans are capable of, and it shatters the idea that you can sit down with common people and agree. Some people are never going to get there, and they are definitely out there plotting, scheming to destroy the human race and worship the earth and nature for its origins and eradicate God's creation. So it's a very anti-God position. And yes, I will define it. And yes, I will go into great detail on it. But for now, I understand why George has this great book in his office, and anybody wants to go over and get one, go knock on Senator Lang's door at his office in Columbus and say, I want one of these books. Well, better yet, go out there and buy it. It's a great book. It's really what, obviously, Trump policy centers around this. I would say this is going to be the policy of Vivek Ramaswamy in Ohio, and this is where we need to defend the ground to protect fossil fuels for upper mobility, for the world to have access to greater wealth and greater options, and make an articulate argument for it and position it, because it's good for the human race. And for perpetuating the creativity that can come out of the human race, you need energy and power. And I will do more talks about the benefits of that upper mobility and how it comes from power, and why you want good energy to do that. And that comes best right now from fossil fuels and nuclear. And that's what the Democrats have been against, and they've been looking to really regress all human beings, not just in America, regress them back to a state that they could easily control from a worship of nature. And that gets into some pretty complicated territory philosophically. And there's a lot more to talk about regarding that. But as far as basic understandings of what a good energy policy should be for your state, whether it's Ohio or any state in the United States or any place in the world, or from the Trump administration, this book really puts it in context that everybody needs to get their arms around. It's a great book. I understand why he's giving it to people, why he's talking about it, and I'm happy to have read it a few times now, and I think it's worth a lot of discussion, and I will certainly give it a lot of attention because it deserves it. So for now, you have to understand that energy policy for Democrats is rooted in the same anti-human stance that abortion rights have been, and they are very blatant about it, and they showed their fangs during COVID, and that they really would like to torpedo all progress society has made and to regress human beings into oblivion. And they show that ruthlessness, and it's always them who are so aggressive. Republicans cave over and over again because they're not willing to play the same level hardball. Trump is, but the Senate and the House and at state levels and federal levels have not been. And you better understand what's at stake. And the tip of the iceberg is definitely touched on in this book. And countless examples were given, which are very beneficial. So when you're looking for energy policy and know how to defend it, this is your book. So fossil future. It definitely is going to be a big part of our future for a while. There will eventually become a time when renewables will become much more productive, but we're a little ways off. And right now, fossil fuel energy is the way to get people into the best state that the human beings could be. And we need to back it up as much as possible, especially in the state of Ohio. Anyways, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you ever read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day, and see you later.
Thank you for listening.